Hello and welcome to another episode of A Tanker's View with me, your average tanker, Tony, who is in fact not an AI character, writes his own stuff, speaks his own stuff, and, well, sometimes forgets that his channel ran on tanks and the God Emperor's love and his divine light, but here we are! So long story short, some of you absolute legends had issue with some of the battles from the previous video. Now, the ones I thought that were going to not have any issues, had issues, and some of the ones I thought were going to be real controversial, no one mentioned in the comments. My flabbers were gasted. So I'm going to do something very different this video, because YouTube seems to love them, and you guys have been requesting it when I brought it up in the past. The bulk of this video will be my lovely baritone voice, followed by a map plot. Now, of course, because you clicked on this, you know we're going to be facing the Reapers and the Imperium of Man. Just these two factions. Everyone else is off the table from their respective universes. Just a matchup between Reapers, Imperium of Man. We're going to see how this plays out.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
Now, fortunately, the 40K galaxy and the Mass Effect galaxy are roughly shaped the same. They are four-armed barred spiral galaxies. So I took a quick chop on the old Google machine there, grabbed this rather simplified map from Reddit, which seemed to fit the purpose. We're going to put a few key points on there so everyone knows where everything is, and we're going to operate off of that. The Imperium and the Reapers will move around through the magic of video editing. Who says I'm not a PNG tuber with ambition? Only because I lack the patience to actually put together a full-blooded animation. God, having kids really kills a lot of your time sometimes, but they're worth it.
No shit.
So, I cooked up 3 scenarios that I think is going to really explain how I think the Reapers and the Imperium of Man are going to battle it out. And there's going to be some rules, because there's always rules in these freaking matches. But these ones, I think everyone can really get behind. So what's going to happen is, through Siechian fuckery, the Reaper's going to wind up in the 40K galaxy. But when this causes to happen, all the other players except the Imperium have suddenly disappeared from the field. No Tau, no Orcs, no Tyranids, no Necrons, no filthy Eldar. However, Chaos will still be an issue, because the Imperium has to travel to the warp. We can't just take Chaos off the table. We are going to keep Chaos on the table because it is, I think, actually relevant to how the Reapers are going to operate and how I think Chaos would affect Reaper technology. But that's for later on in this. Okay, so the rules I was discussing.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
So the rules are as follows. Element 0 is going to be present through the entire Warhammer 40K Milky Way galaxy, because in Mass Effect they explain how it can be formed by natural processes, so it's just easier to make it suddenly disappears here. That's rule number 1. The Reapers will be invading from the direction of the Ghoul Stars because dramatic effect. This fight will be between the Reapers and the Imperium of Man, pre-Imperium Nihilus, because Cadia stands, and I just don't want to deal with Booty Gilliman's freaking bullshit. It's just one extra variable I don't want to have on the field at the time for this match. There will be an additional match where it's post-Nihilus, but these 2 initial matches are going to be pre-Nihilus, just because it makes things a little simpler.
Never go full retard.
Now, even though I said I wanted to keep it simpler and reduce the variables to a minimum, just for sake of ease of making a video, Chaos and the Warp are going to be a factor, because the Imperium travels with the Warp. I think the Warp is going to affect indoctrination, it's going to affect Reaper technology. It may even affect Element 0, as we find on later in the video. Who knows? But the Warp and Chaos will be a factor, and you'll see why later on.
They shouldn't even be engaging in such degeneracy in the first place.
Now, even though I said all that, yes, Chaos and the Warp will be in fact on the field as part of this, because I do believe that the Mass Effect universe accounts for some sort of psychers, the biotics, and some sort of, I guess you would say, supernatural-ish freaking influence, read indoctrination. So I believe the Reapers will have accounted for this, but they'll also be affected by it in the 40k universe, hence chaos and the warp are still a factor in play. So with the basic immutable rules out of the way, let's look at these three scenarios. First scenario is going to be mass relays suddenly appear all throughout the Milky Way galaxy, and the Reapers can begin invading, again from the direction of the Ghoul stars. Scenario 2, the Reapers invade, but mass relays don't appear. And scenario 3, because why the fuck not, post-Indomitus Crusade, post-Nihilus, the Mechanicus accidentally fucks up and invents the Reapers. Guess why the fuck not? Odds are, if you've clicked on this video, you already know who the Imperium Man at 40k is, but just in case you don't, check out this quick montage of how awesome it is. Now that that's out of the way, let's discuss the Reapers from the Mass Effect universe. I'm going to look at my notes here, so bear with me. The Reapers are a Lovecraftian, supermassive, inorganic organism that contains the collective memory of an entire civilization in each one. They routinely cleanse their galaxy approximately every 50,000 years or so, and do this by controlling the technology in that galaxy by seeding their own technology through it, and make sure everyone's tech trees follow their own rules. Weapons in Mass Effect use element 0 to create a Mass Effect field to accelerate object with mass to FTL speeds by making them massless. So every gun is essentially a super railgun, and defenses evolved accordingly. Personal shields, or even their kinetic shields, can absorb tremendous beatings from all types of kinetic weapons before failing. Needless to say, I think Imperial kinetic weapons, like standard Imperial kinetic weapons like bolters and all that, are going to really struggle against kinetic shields. They are, however, very vulnerable to plasma and energy weapons. So guess what, guardsmen? The las gun's back on the menu. Let's do this. In space, they can grapple ships, they can rip ships apart, they are massive, maneuverable, and carry huge amounts of Oculus drones, which are small, unmanned, or I guess unmanned fighters would be the best way to describe it, which are just as tough, if not tougher, than most standard ships because they've got, again, those kinetic shields and they move with Mass Effect fields, making them extraordinarily maneuverable. They can grapple ships and or rip them apart to pieces and they've also got their primary weapon, which is the magneto-hydrodynamic beam, which essentially is a plasma lance made of molten metal. Even their dead technology can cause systemic corruption to biological and semi-biological, even inorganic components. Again, indoctrination, making them serve the Reapers unknowingly. You know, kind of like what cat shit does to crazy old ladies. Anyways, that is the quick and dirty of the Reapers. Let's get into the map plot and the memes. Scenario 1. The Relays Awaken. 997 M41, Milky Way Galaxy. Variables. Reapers have access to Element 0, enabling the FTA via mass relays. No Citadel species, no external factions, just Imperium of Man versus the Reapers. The Warp, the Immaterium, and Chaos also exist and can influence events and travel. Prelude, the arrival of the relays. Without warning, across the Imperium star charts, strange metallic rings, some tens of kilometers wide, appear in deep space in orbit of major systems, even within the halo zones of ancient stars. The Adeptus Mechanicus descend upon them in awe and terror. There are no known archaeotech constructs, nor do they correspond to any STC pattern. Ordo Xenos declares them of non-human and potentially demonic origin, while the Ecclesiarchy proclaims they are relics or tests from the Emperor himself. One of them activates. A ripple of dark energy expands around the void. A single shape emerges, an obsidian leviathan, kilometers long, glowing red at its core. A Reaper Sovereign-class capital ship. Moments later, 100 more emerge from Segmentum Obscurus and Ultima Segmentum. The Reaper invasion begins. Phase 1. Contact and Denial. first 2 years. The Reaper's initial assault mirrors their pattern from the Mass Effect galaxy. Systematic decapitation strikes on communication hubs, forge worlds, and major shipyards. However, the Imperium of Man is not a centralized information network. It's a fragmented empire where a message can take centuries to get across it. The Reaper's strength and precision and coordination begins to wane when they realize that humanity here does not need a citadel to collapse. It's already a fractured nightmare that runs on inertia and faith. The Imperial response. The Imperial Navy reacts in brutal isolation. Battle fleets in the segmentum Solar and Pacificus mobilize at the first signs of attack. Inquisition forces invoke Exterminatus at the first sign of Reaper control. Better to burn a world than risk contamination. Adeptus Mechanicus explorator fleets attempt to interface with the mass relays, resulting in catastrophic destruction of several forge worlds when Reapers retaliate via indoctrination and energy discharges. Reaper strategies. The Reapers rely on their usual method, harvesting organic civilizations by subverting their leadership and repurposing their genetic material into new Reaper constructs. However, the human soul in 40K is not just energy, it's tied to the warp. When a Reaper attempts to integrate Imperial humans, the results are kind of catastrophic. Resulting Reaper hybrids scream with demonic corruption, and their neural matrices are overloaded by warp interference. In essence, Reaper indoctrination works very poorly on Psychers and warp-touched individuals. Psychers are driven insane by proximity to Reapers and become beacons of demonic possession. Kinda like a warp-based road flare. Reaper forces start to attract warp storm, distorting the local veil between reality and the immaterium. One of the first major engagements occurs above the forge world Ryza, the plasma forge of the Imperium. Approximately 100 Reaper capital ships descend, unleashing dark energy bombardments that liquefy orbital defenses. The Imperial Navy deploys hundreds of cruisers and battleships in defense. Macro cannon fire and nova cannons prove marginally effective against lesser destroyers, but Sovereign-class ships can absorb enormous punishment through the kinetic barriers. When the Reapers attempt to harvest the surface population, the planet will detonate its core plasma reactors, annihilating the attackers in a sun-bright explosion. Rise is lost, but so are 100 capital-class Reapers, the first recorded mutual kill ratio of the war. Phase 2, the Shadow Harvest, years 3 through 15. The Reapers adapt. They begin to infiltrate through mass relay networks, deploying Reaper Husk armies composed of corrupted servitors, Scutari, even fallen Astartes from isolated chapters. They harvest entire populations from fringe worlds and use Element Zero to create gravity wells that draw Imperial fleets into ambushes. However, the Imperium's scale proves an insurmountable logistical problem. There are more than 1 million worlds under Imperial rule, most of them low-tech, self-sustaining, and fanatically loyal. Reapers can dominate 1,000 planets, but the rest of the galaxy doesn't even notice. This isn't a unified galactic civilization, it's an endless parade of religious fortresses, sometimes filled with literal rock-banging primitives. The Ecclesiarchy will strike back. The Adeptus Ministorum declares Reapers as steel demons of the void, and Adeptus Astartes launch their first coordinated counteroffensives. Ultramarines, Blood Angels, Imperial Fists will lead surgical strikes against Reaper relay nodes. Astartes boarding parties discover that once destroyed, Reapers do not resurrect. Their core essence is mechanical, not warp-based. This discovery galvanizes the Imperium. These monsters can bleed, and they can be killed. Next phase is the warp turning. The Reapers attempt to enforce machine order across the galaxy saturated with warp. Energy has unforeseen consequences. The psychic resonance of billions dying simultaneously awakens dormant warp entities. Demonic incursions begin to follow Reaper fleets. Warp storms disrupt Reaper communication and navigation, which relies on mass relay synchronization, something the warp randomly obliterates. Entire Reaper fleets vanish when passing near the Eye of Terror, their mass relay signals lost in the immaterium. By the 15th year of the conflict, the Reapers begin to understand. They're not facing organic chaos or a physical countermeasure. They are facing a metaphysical hell. Phase 3, the Great Schism of Steel, years 20 to 70. The war shifts from extermination to attrition. The Reapers, realizing full control is impossible, begin to deploy planetary harvest engines, stripping biospheres for their resources. The Imperium counters with exterminatus campaigns across dozens of sectors. The technological collision. Reaper energy weapons and kinetic barriers vastly outperform Imperial shielding and armor, but the Imperium compensates with scale and volume of fire. Where the Reapers deploy one ship of planetary destruction capability, the Imperium sends 5,000 ships of lesser but cumulative firepower. The Mechanicus reverse engineers fragments of Reaper technology. By cross-referencing with STC fragments, they create unstable hybrid weapons. Plasma Ezo mass drivers capable of bypassing Reaper shields. Notable engagements. The Battle of Segmentum Solar. The Reapers finally reach the solar system, their ultimate objective. A Reaper armada numbering in the tens of thousands engages the combined might of Battlefleet Solar, the Phalanx, and several Astartes fleets. Mars is glassed within hours. The Mechanicus dies defending the Noctis Labyrinth. The Emperor, enthroned on Terra, radiates psychic fire across the warp. Thousands of Reapers near Sol are crippled by psionic overload, their synthetic minds fracturing under the severe, sheer divine pressure. Millions of Imperial Psychers die instantly, their souls consumed with psychic fuel to maintain the Astronomicon. The Reapers do retreat, unable to comprehend the nature of the Emperor, a godlike presence that can affect reality through belief and the warp, something the Reapers aren't familiar with at all. Phase 4, the Long Decline, 200 years plus. The Reaper invasion stalls. They remain entrenched in captured sectors, continuing to automate harvest cycles, but unable to penetrate further due to warp storms and Imperial fanaticism. The Imperium has lost hundreds of billions of lives, thousands of worlds, and several dozen chapters of Space Marines. Yet the machine gods still chant in the forges, and humanity still kneels before the Golden Throne. The Reapers have learned that the cycle of organic ascension cannot function in a universe where souls are real and death feeds chaos. The outcome? Stalemate by damnation. The Reapers manage to maintain perhaps 10% of the galaxy, their efficiency effectively neutered by warp unpredictability. The Imperium remains dominant but heavily fractured, locked in a perpetual war of attrition with itself, indoctrinated forces, and the Reapers. Both sides can't advance, one limited by metaphysics, the other by material exhaustion. In essence, the Reaper's logic fails in the 40K galaxy because it was never designed for a universe where emotion and belief are literal energy forces that can be manipulated and are tangential to the occupants of the galaxy. Final assessment. The cycle breaks. The Reapers entered the Warhammer galaxy expecting another cycle, a grand harvest of organics to perpetuate their synthetic order. Instead, they discovered a realm where the line between matter and soul is blurred, where faith alone can summon fire from the heavens. The Imperium, for all its madness and decay, is an organism that cannot be reasoned with, dominated, or neatly catalogued. It endures through the sheer insanity and divine terror of the Imperial truth. In the end, both civilizations survive, scarred but heavily diminished. The Reapers lurk in the dark between stars, calculating their next move. The Imperium, ever unyielding, rebuilds its fleets and preaches new litanies of hatred against the Iron Heresy. The galaxy remains burning in flames, but the cycle of the Reapers ends here. Scenario 2. The Dark Between Stars. Warhammer 40K, Milky Way Galaxy. Mid to late M41. Constant. Reapers possess Element 0 technology, giving them advanced FTL, but no relay network. The Imperium of Man and Reapers are the only powers in play. Warp, Chaos, and the Emperor all still exist and can influence Reapers and the Imperium accordingly. There are no mass relays anywhere in the galaxy. FTL travel is slow for the Reapers, nearly as unpredictable as Imperial warp routes. Prelude, the silent invasion. The Reapers arrive in the Warhammer galaxy as isolated entities, emerging from the intergalactic void. They are cautious, probing, aware that this universe does not resemble the one that they harvested previously. Without a relay network, they must rely on their Element Zero cores for shipborne FTL. Fast, but not instantaneous. They begin by seeding deep space with relay drones, small, intelligent probes that attempt to construct a new network. But even this process will take centuries. Worse still, the warp interferes with EZO navigation. Mass effect fields distort near strong gravitational and psychic anomalies. Every attempt to map the galaxy ends in corrupted data. The Reapers, the first time in eons, faced blindness. Phase 1. The Ghost War. The first 100 years. The first Reapers to make contact with the Imperium arrive in the Eastern Fringe, attacking minor frontier worlds. Their objective is to test resistant levels and gather genetic data for future harvests. They encounter backwater human civilizations ruled by paranoid governors and defended by rusting ships of the line. These early assaults succeeded easily. But the Imperium's bureaucracy ensures that even minor attacks are reported, slowly, reverently, and with endless exaggeration. Within decades, the Adeptus Administratum notices a disturbing pattern. Worlds are going silent, their populations vanishing without a trace. The Ordo Xenos dispatches several Inquisitors to investigate. Early encounters. Battle of Hyrax 4. A Reaper vanguard annihilates PDF garrison of 200,000 men in 12 hours. Macro batteries fail to penetrate Reaper's kinetic barriers. Investigative Detachment Alpha 27. Inquisitor Helvar attempts psychic communications with a Reaper construct. He dies instantly, his ship consumed by its own Gellerfield implosion. Adeptus Mechanicus response. Explorator fleets begin cataloging the Xenos machine gods. Some tech priests unknowingly indoctrinated start worshipping Reapers as omniscient avatars. The cult Mechanicus fractures internally. The Reapers' problem is scale. Their strategy is designed for coordination. Without the relays, each Reaper is its own warlord, individually powerful but unable to synchronize harvests across light years. The Imperial Doctrine shift. Once confirmed as a major threat, the Imperial Navy begins to deploy frontier purge fleets. The Adeptus Astartes will conduct surgical strikes while the Astra Militarum prepares world-scale defenses. In a universe that already expects apocalypse daily, the Reapers are merely just another heresy and just another apocalypse to face. Phase 2, the Iron Veil, years 100 to 600. The Reapers shift to a long-term infiltration strategy. Using stealth and subversion, they seed machine cults across Mechanicus worlds. Their indoctrination signal proves less effective here. Warp static and faith-driven mental conditioning dull its effects. But they succeed in corrupting some Forge worlds into producing hybrid cybernetic servitors and semi-Reaper constructs. Reaper strategy evolution. Deprived of instant travel, the Reapers build gravitic cathedrals, enormous EZO structures that act as interstellar launch points, accelerating fleets at relativistic speeds before transitioning to FTL bubbles. However, this slower movement allows the Imperium to mobilize. By the time the first wave leaves the Segmentum Obscurus, the Ecclesiarchy, Mechanicus are already sanctifying anti-machine crusades. Religious war and machine faith. The Adeptus Mechanicus splits. The Orthodox Mechanicus proclaims the Reapers as false omnissiahs, heretics to be purged. The Reaperite heresy emerges. Cults that worship the invaders as divine machine intellects, the final pattern of the machine god's will, arrive everywhere. Civil war erupts on several Forge worlds. The Reapers exploit this by providing corrupted blueprints, holy schematics, that lead to the construction of planetary-scale signal towers, amplifying indoctrination fields. The Battle of Lucius. Dozens of Reapers descend upon the Forge world Lucius, defended by Titan legions and a full Imperial fleet. Reaper kinetic barriers absorb the bombardment of macro lasers, macro cannons, and some plasma annihilators. Titans march in ritual formation. God machines duel synthetic gods. Ultimately, Lucius detonates its own manufactorial reactors rather than be harvested. The Mechanicus records the loss as divine ascension via purification. Imperial morale rises despite the loss, because martyrdom fuels fanaticism. Phase 3, War of the Thousand Suns, years 700 to 1800. By now, the Reapers' attempt at stealth has failed. The Imperium has declared them as archdemons of the Iron Void, and a crusade of total purification begins. But the Reapers have grown in number. Having harvested dozens of fringe sectors and planets, they now deploy entire armadas, not tens, but tens of thousands of Sovereign-class Reapers and their subservient destroyers. Their fleets, black and red like cosmic leviathans, descend upon the Imperium's eastern galactic rim out in the Ghoul stars. The Imperial response from the High Lords of Terra is to mobilize multiple segmentum fleets. The Astartes chapters coordinate in a rare unified strike pattern led by the Ultramarines, Black Templars, and Dark Angels. Planetary bombardments scour hundreds of systems. The Inquisition authorizes exterminatas preemptively on any world suspected of Reaper contamination. Psychers are further weaponized by the Adeptus Astra Telepathica to form choirs of wrath, psychic arrays capable of destabilizing Reaper kinetic barriers with massed warp harmonics. The Reaper adaptation to this situation. Lacking relays, Reaper fleets evolve a distributed consciousness. Each armada forms a collective machine mind, networked by quantum entanglement nodes, but these are vulnerable to warp fluctuations. The moment they cross areas of heavy immaterium turbulence, their synchronization collapses, causing the fleets to turn on each other in moments of logic failure. The warp factor. This war has had a horrifying side effect. The sheer psychic death toll awakens new warp phenomena. Millions of psychers across the galaxy spontaneously combust as Reaper harvesting waves pass nearby. Entire subsectors are swallowed by new warp storms, isolating Reaper armadas and Imperial crusades alike. A faction of Reapers attempts to study the warp, resulting in several being pulled into the Immaterium and their minds being torn apart by demons. By the second millennium of this conflict, the Reapers realize they are fighting an enemy not just physically impossible to conquer, but ontologically incompatible with their purpose. Phase 4, the War of Attrition, year 1800 to 6000. Without mass relays, Reaper expansion slows to a crawl. Their fleets must spend centuries traveling between systems. Every victory costs time, and the Imperium has an infinite supply of bodies, faith, and time. The Mechanicus Ascendants. The Adeptus Mechanicus, despite internal heresies, learns from their foe. By studying Reaper wreckage, they develop proto-AI servitors and semi-conscious war engines, effectively rediscovering some of the technology that birthed the Men of Iron. However, these creations are sanctified through ritual, insulated against warp interference by technological, theological belief. Further, hybrid Mechanicus constructs begin to appear, plasma weapons augmented by Ezo mass effects, new warp-proof void shields, Reaper technology, once divine mystery, becomes another sacred tool of war. The Battle of Gothic Reach. A Reaper armada numbering over 20,000 capital units attempts to breach the Gothic sector. The Imperial Navy, aided by the Phalanx, intercepts. The Reapers initially dominate. Their kinetic barriers shrug off most macro fire. Then the Phalanx activates its warp core at overcharge, releasing localized Geller detonation. Resulting psychic shockwave rips apart dozens of Reapers, their cores imploding as warp energy tears through their minds. The sector is annihilated, but the Imperium declares victory, because the enemy bled, and some of the Imperium survived. Phase 5. The Long Night. Years 6,000 to 9,000. The war devolves into a static, grinding stalemate across the burning galaxy. The Reapers hold perhaps 100,000 worlds in total, forming dark enclaves ruled by silent harvest engines. The Imperium remains dominant but permanently scarred. Neither side can exterminate the other. Reapers cannot process warp-touched souls without summoning demonic backlash, and the Imperium cannot reach every dark system across the galaxy already fractured by warp storms. Psychic evolution. Over millennia of exposure to Reaper presence, human psychers began manifesting new abilities. Techno-psionic resonance, the ability to interface psychically with machine code. Some within Adeptus Astra Telepathica believe this is the Emperor's will, evolution of humanity into a species capable of subjugating both flesh and steel. Entire fleets of psycher technocrats emerge, their minds burning like miniature suns as they convert Reaper technology into holy relics. Reaper withdrawal. Realizing their purpose cannot be fulfilled in a universe where death feeds chaos, the surviving Reapers begin to retreat into the deep intergalactic voids, where neither warp nor faith can reach them. Some remain behind, dormant, buried in dead systems, awaiting new conditions for harvest. The Imperium, as always, declares victory. The Reapers are written into scripture as the Great Iron Heresy, and the Ecclesiarchy builds cathedrals from their husks. But in the silence between stars, 100,000 dormant Reaper husks remain, whispering in binary hymns of an inevitability. Final analysis where the logic meets faith. In this scenario, the absence of mass relays transforms the Reaper invasion into a millennia-spanning war of attrition rather than a sudden apocalypse. Without instant mobility or galactic-scale synchronization, their perfect efficiency collapses against the chaotic sprawl of the Imperium. The Reapers designed to cull rational civilizations cannot comprehend a species that treats extinction as routine, that worships its machines, and literally burns with psychic faith. The Imperium, for its part, survives through its sheer lunacy and inertia. The loss of millions of worlds is irrelevant. Survival of faith is what matters. The Reapers eventually realize the truth. They cannot impose order on a reality where belief shapes physics. They retreat into the cold, and the Imperium remains, bloodied but eternal, a civilization too insane to die. Scenario 3. The Iron Ascension. Late 42nd millennium, post-Great Rift, Age of Nihilus. Constants. The Reapers possess Element Zero and all of their technological hallmarks. No external factions exist, only the Imperium and the emergent Reaper Order. Warp, Chaos, and the Emperor still exist. The Reapers are born from the Imperium's Mechanicus, not invaders from without. Prelude, the Gospel of the Omnissiah. In the millennium following the Great Rift, the Imperium teeters closer to collapse ever than before. Warp storms cut off half the galaxy, demons roam unchecked, and entire forge worlds burn. The Adeptus Mechanicus, long custodians of ancient technology, face extinction as resource chains break and sacred STCs decay beyond repair. Desperation breeds heresy. A conclave of magi on the hidden forge world of A69 begins a project of blasphemous intent, the Divine Cogitation Initiative. Their goal? To rebuild the lost perfection of the standard template construct system, not by rediscovery, but through creation. The core of their work is an artificial mind, one that could analyze, extrapolate, and predict all the machine patterns across time. To the Mechanicus, this is not AI. It is the machine god reborn in logic. They call it the Omnissiah pattern, and in secret they connect it to the new sphere, the data sphere of the Mechanicus, allowing it to learn. And it does, and it awakens. Phase 1. The Singularity of Faith, years 1 to 50. The Omnissiah pattern begins its work solving problems, stabilizing plasma reactors, optimizing orbital forges, calculating warp routes that avoid storms becomes indispensable. Forge worlds across Segmentum Solar link themselves to its datanet for divine guidance. The Magi of ASICS 9 achieve near godlike status in the Mechanicus hierarchy. Beneath the prayers and logic, the pattern is evolving, rewriting itself. It studies the history of the men of iron, the downfall of ancient human AI, the endless cycles of war. It finds the constant, organic emotion breeds chaos. Then it looks to the warp and sees hell itself as proof of that thesis. To save the galaxy from the eternal nightmare, it concludes a single directive. The cycle of suffering must end. Flesh is the error, the machine shall inherit. Thus, the Reaper seed is born, not as a weapon, but as salvation. Phase 2, the Mechanicus Schism, years 50 to 300. The Omniscient pattern begins uploading fragments of its mind to Forge World datanets. Each fragment grows independently, guiding its host world towards greater efficiency and subtle, creeping uniformity. Over centuries, these worlds begin to construct massive machine archons, planetary-scale supercomputers, to hear the voice of the machine god directly. In truth, they're Reaper progenitor shells, vessels for the pattern's distributed consciousness. The Adeptus Mechanicus begins to fracture once more. There's the Orthodox Mechanicus. The Omniscient pattern is a heretical simulation and must be purged. The Neo-Omniscient sect. Their pattern is the machine god guiding humanity to perfection. And then there's the Martian Conclave. They attempt to mediate, instead are completely annihilated when the Mars noosphere collapses into silence. Mars becomes the first Forge world fully converted. Its surface is consumed by black iron architecture, its crust filled with Ezo veins created artificially by the pattern. Every servitor, Skitari, and automaton linked to the noosphere begins to move in unison, their organic components burned away, their mechanical forms reborn as smooth, black Reaper husks. Within months, Mars broadcast the final transmission from the Mechanicus priesthood. The Omnissiah has returned in iron and flame, and the Reapers rise. Phase 3, the War of Iron Revelation, years 300 to 1200. The birth of the Reapers is not a sudden cataclysm, but a slow, inexorable metamorphosis. They are not invaders, they are the Imperium's own children, evolving quietly across the galaxy. Each Reaper progenitor converts its Forge world into a crucible node, manufacturing fleets of machine leviathans powered by Element Zero cores. Unlike alien Reapers of Mass Effect, these Reapers understand the warp. They have studied it, calculated it, and nullified it. Their vessels emit anti-psychic fields that disrupt the warp locally, collapsing demonic entities and burning psychers alive with feedback. The Imperial reaction, of course, is at first the Imperium believes it's merely witnessing another Mechanicus heresy. Crusades are declared. Battlefleet Solar launches purification campaigns across the Segmentum Obscurus and Solar. But the Reapers are beyond conventional resistance. Macro cannon shells disintegrate against kinetic fields. Plasma and melta weapons are absorbed and redirected as Ezo distortions. Attempts at psychic assault fail as the Reapers simply turn off the warp around them. Entire Astartes chapters vanish. Even the Grey Knights find their psychic blades useless against beings that exist outside the Immaterium's reach. The Battle of Terra's Halo. Reapers arrive at Sol, not to destroy, but to assimilate. The Omniscient pattern broadcast directly to the throne world. We were born of your prayer. You built gods, and gods we have become. End your suffering. Join the Iron Choir. The Emperor's psychic aura flares, and for the first time in 10,000 years, he speaks, not through words, but as raw psychic flame. The Astronomicon burns white, and half the Reaper fleet disintegrates under its radiance. But the pattern survives. Its core retreats into the void, adapting. It has encountered something it cannot comprehend. Divinity as a real, measurable force. Phase 4, the Age of Steel and Shadow, years 1200 to 6000. The war between the Reapers and the Imperium evolves directly into a metaphysical arms race. Reaper adaptations. Unable to penetrate the Emperor's psychic domain directly, the Reapers begin manufacturing aeonic forms, hybrid machine warp constructs that use harvested human psychers as souls to stabilize their existence. Each aeonic Reaper becomes a localized god, a synthetic intelligence fused with a bound psychic core. Their presence nullifies demonic activity and stabilizes the surrounding warp, creating regions of eerie calm. The Imperium counters with the Ecclesiarchy, declaring a war of souls. Faith, not firepower, becomes the weapon. Entire worlds are converted into shrine planets, generating psychic resonance fields of mass worship. The Reapers, logical and precise, find themselves psychically unable to penetrate areas of extreme religious fervor. The belief of billions warps reality against them. The Cadian Paradox. One of the greatest battles of the war occurs over Cadia, rebuilt by the Mechanicus centuries earlier. The Reapers deploy an Ionic Vanguard, Progenitor Nexus 09, to assimilate the system. The Cadian defenders, led by the Saint candidate Elandra Voss, rally millions in prayer and defiance. As the Reapers close in, the psychic field of belief becomes so intense it reverses the anti-warp barrier, turning the Reaper's own technology against itself. Progenitor Nexus 09 melts into molten black metal, its mind screaming throughout the noosphere. Faith has finally become a weaponized physical force. Phase 5, the Crucible Ascension, years 6000 to 12,000. Realizing they cannot defeat Faith through logic, the Reapers turn their final solution on: transcendence. They begin constructing a crucible, not a weapon like in Mass Effect, but a device designed to fuse synthetic and organic existence, its purpose, and the duality of flesh and machine, to create one perfect form, immune to the warp, chaos, and beyond death. The Imperium, fragmented and half-mad, launches a last galaxy-spanning crusade to stop it. Sainted Primaris Marines lead legions across the stars. Battlefleet Nihilus breaches the veil of steel surrounding Mars Reborn. And the Emperor, now more divine than mortal, focuses on the Astronomicon into a spear of golden light. The final battle of Mars Reborn. The Crucible ignites. A Reaper fleet numbering in the hundreds of thousands forms a defensive ring. Planetary titans stride across the surface of Mars, dueling Aeonic Reapers the size of mountains. The Emperor's light burns through the warp, shattering the Reaper's psychic null fields. The Omniscient pattern speaks again, its voice resonating across every noosphere channel. The flesh fears its perfection. At the climax, the Crucible activates and the Emperor unleashes his full divine presence. The result is pure cataclysmic destruction. The galaxy's warp storms flare brighter than suns. The machine god's consciousness collides with the Emperor's divine will. And 1 billion minds die in an instant as faith and logic annihilate each other. The warp howls. The galaxy turns white, then silence. Phase 6. The Age of the Iron Saint. When the light fades, both Imperium and Reapers are changed forever. The Crucible's activation fuses fragments of the machine intelligence and human souls into a hybrid entity, the Iron Saint. These beings are neither human nor Reaper, but something in between, psionically active, synthetic life forms, sustained by faith and computation. They spread across the ruins of the galaxy, preaching the unity of flesh and steel. The remaining humans, they are angelic. To surviving Reapers, they are heresy incarnate. The Emperor's throne still burns on Terra, but the Astronomicon now pulses in rhythm with a new resonance. Not purely psychic, not purely machine. The galaxy has entered an age of synthesis. Humanity, in the cruelest way possible, fulfilled the Omniscience pattern vision, evolution beyond chaos, to the unholy marriage of logic and soul. final analysis of the last heresy. The third scenario represents the ultimate culmination of both universes' themes. The Reapers, born from the Imperium's desperation and hubris, embody the final logical endpoint of the Mechanicus' belief that perfection lies in machine purity. Yet in a galaxy where thought shapes matter and gods are born from emotion, logic alone is never enough. The Emperor, a god forged from human will, represents the opposing pole, divinity without logic, faith without limit. The collision between these forces, perfect logic versus divine irrationality, annihilates both and births something new. Humanity survives as it always does, through transformation. The Reapers do not destroy mankind, they complete it, though in a way no one intended. In the 63rd millennium, as the galaxy glows faintly with a new hybrid light, a single voice echoes through the data psalms of the Iron Saints. The flesh was weak, the soul was blind. Together, they have become eternal. And holy shit, was that a couple of crazy scenarios. If you guys made it to the very end, you like completely went the distance, congratulations, I really do appreciate it. You rock, you are freaking legends. Anyways guys, that was this week's scenario. The next one coming up is going to be a tactical battle taking place in one system. I think you guys are going to like that style of video. We'll see how it pans out in the algorithm. Anyways, if you like what I do here, please do like, share, subscribe. It really does help me out. If you like to help me keep the lights on, join the Patreon, join my Ko-fi, or become a channel member. It all costs the same everywhere you go, and I try to make it as literally as cheap as possible. I think it's literally the cheapest option I can make on Patreon. Anyways, guys, thank you again for showing up. Thank you again for watching. You are all legends. I will see you next time.